I get tired as well because like be your courses with Labes. Time at the Science music pay. Bruh, wait, what position do you pay?
I play back goal, which is this is 6 elements. Yeah, and I play Boca 222. I used to play Oka, UI pause. In high school, because I was a big short neck, short, and then I jump. And I prefer post to post. So I don't know. That's where the training happened. But yeah. So from our last episode, ne? Oh, it wasn't an episode. It wasn't. I've been looking around. I've been noticing cables. I hope, like, if you watched the last episode, you noticed, your mind started looking around and wondering where these guys going, but nobody knows. Hey, sure.
So yeah, man. So I discuss. Oh, let's go. Oh, so firstly, we start up
This next episode, our second episode, we'll call it that just to. So we start off this with a study in the US by Hackberth in 1995, where they found that African American and Latino neighborhoods were saturated with alcohol and tobacco billboards, which was far more in contrasted to whites or other wealthy areas. So what you're saying was, it really is a familiar thing because you notice even like Xanadu or Deep Street, you find the same thing, the same kind of advertisements. Oh, they are tobacco, get money, crib laws. But then when you get to science and they talk about an investment company, if you want to get money, or they say you can get an incredible creditor in measure. And then all of a sudden we see the only time they post about alcohol is saying, don't you want drive? So we as the township is supposed to drink and drive and get good money, more parallels.
But I noticed this when I was on a car train and I went to Pretoria, and when you're on the car train, you see these things of investment banking, private banking, and I'm thinking like, hey,
How do I get a private bank? Well, it's still that you don't think about, like, consciously, but influences you. The next thing you know, how did I get a private banker? But my car, see, like, it, that's in a sorry PR, yeah. And then you know, quiet, was linear. Oh, well, this isn't a coincidence, actually. It's what Apple speaks about. It's called targeted saturation issue. Yeah. So this is basically meaning that we basically trying to get these people to more exposure because this our form of advertising is not mainly just advertising products. We're advertising a lifestyle that we think is we can deal and it's suitable for them. But when it comes to us as the ones who are not part of, we basically, since we divided, centralization. So we imagine a portraiture, for example. So we call a mass. For Amasi on the water because Amasi when you get little exposure to Amasi into it. So into is like a water now. You can remain Amasi stays. So basically when you pour in it, Amasi get remain up at the top with all injury. It'll be tilted out by it. Yeah. So basically that's what they pour. It's targeted. It's not a coincidence.
So is it not then a part of something that we still want to speak about later, but and like we alluding to that matrix of domination, of controlled ideas and spaces. Because then when we look at, when we just compare the Santa and all like billboards and where they give you luxuries, private school, luxury cars, private schools, skincare regimes, investment firms, it becomes like Johannesburg is essentially two cities and two different economies. One economy is the consumer, which makes up the majority of the city. And then the elite side, this Rosebank, Sanson side, becomes the people that actually produce and invest and essentially hold the capital. So it's things that we can go and go to Njoh, who in 2019 speaks about power over versus power to, which I think that's something that we actually have to unpack properly. In these advertisement practices, corporations and media platforms are exercising what we call a power over marginalized communities by deciding what they see and how often and what values then become promoted based off of those advertisements. So if you just take a moment and you think of
the adverts that you see when you go home, on your way to work, on your way to go visit a family member, what advertisements do you see within those spaces? And then take a conscious step and think of how are they influencing the way you either feel within the space or what you think of your own principles. Are they having an impact? Because that's essentially what I'm talking about in terms of space isn't really the space that we see, but there's psychological underpinnings that slowly get implanted throughout your movement in space.
It kind of boosts to something that we'll delve deep into within our podcast about Foucault's theory of normalization and unitivity. But what I want you to realize is that the agency of these communities that we're by pushing this, just pushing these type of advertisements, we are pushing tobacco and alcohol advertisements. Their agency is actually overwritten in the sense by basically the commercial interest and basically special nucleates. Because if you remember, a township in its sense was deemed to be a confinement. So when you put this, it's here to be in isolation and neglection. So even the way that these advertisements are actually happening, they overwritten, they overrided the agency of people that actually stay through these communities.
Yeah. Yeah, man, it's much deeper than we understand. Wow. I'd help you a little bit to Hous's matrix of domination. It's not just about race, because when House speaks about it, you might understand intersectionality of race and class and gender, but it's more about economic status, geography, and you combine those into a marketed side of inequality that people don't really interpret directly. It's more a subconscious thing. Because when we understand space, especially just a reflection on the planning undergraduate degree, you'll go to sites and you would look at the physical. So you look at the street vendors, you look at the facades, and you talk about there's good facades here, they're promoting this, but you never stopped and looked at the marketing around the space and say, okay, how does this marketing influence the space? And I'm reminded of an excursion we did with Mobile, one of our lecturers, where she asked us, how do we know that the space we're in is going down? The whole class was dumbfounded. We were like, okay. And then she said, whenever you see an influx of toy shops being advertised, corn, like, no, the whole, no, because the pork shops, when you say it's trading, you trading shops, yeah. When you see an influx of that, sure, it immediately tells you that the area is going down. Okay. So then if we can read that, why can we not read the implications of an influx of alcohol shops, an influx of easy cashback loans, MTN talking about Mambara week loans? How then are we not interpreting that as systematic?
It really is, Arsh. Like, if you actually think about it, you did touch on it. That matrix, right? If you watch the movie Matrix, nothing that you see is actually it. So here we talk about a matrix of domination. Let me give you a scenario. So a young black man, he, say from Teresa, is always exposed to see just advertisements about pools, out drinking alcohol, gamble, eating cake, get money quick, shut up way. When I take out some J, you don't come much is a quick something. Yeah, well, those type of advertisements, they're not really running as a message. It's actually how economic and racial power projects are actually enforced. Sure. And then that intersects through media and also identity. And this is part of this intersectionality that House speaks of, and then ties into the whole matrix of domination, because now it's become a normalized thing that you're trapped in, that you confine in a sense, in the cycle that you see to call you're not able to escape. Because sometimes you can get a man living in Zante, yeah, but then the matrix, he's still stuck in the matrix of Ekar. He may have the materialist things that one is thinking of Ekar, Ingan, flex, and just upuza alcohol, or for that much don't bully. Yeah, it's the same thing. It's a matrix. It's hard to escape.
So isn't that is that what Davis calls symbolic places? Where he says, like, visual culture doesn't have to be overly hateful, but just has to be normalized inferiority and in limiting as in like aspirations, essentially based off of what you were saying, what you see. Ooh, like you grow up and it's easy because we can associate this with just nature. On being a guy from Ekasi, Nikule Gibona, the guy on Kusheshe, sure, the guy named Apa, being not knowing how he got it, but being the one that's is the inspiration, yeah. Even if he's doing shame things, but then that's the level, that's how far my eye has been able to see. Ooh. So, but like going back to the bubbles, we've not taken into account that my eyes as a kid growing up sees the KFC being advertised as that thing of, and what that? That's status. If men get the KFC is a shop, then you go to Sense in your boat time. I keep the body KFC there. Yeah. There's no KFC. It's coming up a no one net bank. We understand. Couldn't discover. I've never seen a discovery advert thingy so it's. So what? By your word. People don't take this capital. This but then you don't see like those adverts. The only time people get ads about bags is when they're going on YouTube had to watch a video and simply because they can't afford TV, just like and my choice. But even those ads, they say a lot about you. Like your old algorithm, they say hand on big sick, yes, those ads. Hey, but they think about it like so. Then how? Then the question is how? Like how do we kind of look at this situation as planners? But we'll leave that to you. We'll summarize it at the end. But for now, take a moment to pause and how does this actually influence the way we plan or design on spaces? Yeah, remember Billboards oranges sell planets, they sell wolves.
Foucault mentions normalisation, which ties into the whole thing combined. So whatever you Foucault, the type of advertisements that you see and what is exposed to, they'll become a part of your master. Just think about how maybe pause the video and do whatever you will. Yeah. Just keep that in the back of it.
Yes. So you speak about normativity, I think about the contrast of what is normalized in certain spaces. Yeah. Where it's normal to buy inward. It looks cheap, blah. But in sense, it's like, damn.
Somebody said about it. Yeah, what are you doing here? So,
Wasn't telling the devil. You understand the middle of the week. Like shapey on the streets in Shaikas. Because it's normalized by the people. Yeah. And then on the other side, Moseka say all of a sudden with letting Namachiti start speaking about investment banking. They start to think it's outside of Pagan. But in sense it's the norm, like now the only time you speak of Imad investment is when you say don't have people that when you don't can I say kapop between NBA said yeah, because it's there. That Betway is sponsoring everything these days. Soccer, it's there. But it's mostly within luxury. What do people in upper urban areas do they not gamble? Yeah, that's the thing. So yeah, man, it's very interesting. It's really two worlds in the same city. Yeah, it's basically the margin of panoptica. It's basically the Foucault. I didn't mention that he's mainly the one in the theories that actually it's distant out in terms of space in the psychology. So he tells us about this whole thing of constant surveillance, which produces suffrage regulation. So basically, yeah, and this says the surveillance in itself, the symbolic, but then it's your entire environment that promotes made low bell, high risk products. You internalize these laws, and since you're constantly exposed to these things, like yeah. So that would ultimately premise what Joe says, or asks rather, of where is the power to? And when you are in this question, he's basically in our context challenging us to imagine what it would look like if we actually had the power to reclaim the visual space of our urban environments, to challenge what is normalized, to accept or rather to not accept certain billboards that we feel or deep are not a good representation or building character within our neighborhoods. Because you find a lot of cases of looking at spaces that are very urban, where billboards would go up, the community would have a say and they'd be taken down. But in townships, I don't know if we as people from the townships know that we actually have the power
to take them down, or are we just accepting of the marketing and eating it up?
In like a township, you can get a board, get black label, and then you get the board for vote for Louis Tobacco, Councillor Banman, and you get another board down here, get a Lone Creek. Now you just, at this point, the market's in your power, you're not used to it because you're always used to this constant chaos, which is basically where house comes in as us as to like provide just one system or there's four mutuals. It's not enough to just change the who's on the billboard and what's on the billboard. Do we have to think about your power in terms of you controlling the space, you being heard, and how basically the community in itself is represented in all the systems and urban planning and policy. You know?
Yeah. So then ultimately, this is not just about marketing. It's deeper than that. This is about visual justice. You, if watching this now, understanding that you have a duty to yourself to speak up about what you're being fed. And especially to planners who might be seeing this, you have the duty to the people that you are planning for, and designing urban spaces for, to protect them and to ensure that you're not perpetuating issues that are physical in visual aspects. I think that's how we can, this is what we can leave you guys with today. Yeah, that's all. Just think about it and then join us again next week.
Yeah, well, not the same side. Yes, it gets to be. Use the word peace.
But when we have time, we'll sit down.
We'll also go do some research. Hopefully, you'll do some research.
By the time you get the next episode, you'd have a note for us. Just write it down. Write down in the comments what you'd like to see. Any arguments you might have against us. Feel free. Yeah, it's vibes.
So, yeah, and I think on another thing, next week's episode is tied to a setting whiteness to the being of the water tree. Shoot, that's something that we're gonna touch on. You don't want to give you scoring days.
Think about it.
Yeah, think what could it mean? They're gonna find out. Until then, remember, the city is speaking. You just have to be able to listen to it and read it. Do not let who you are be lost in translation. Tonight, man.
Echo. Oh, man. Did you really say Paul?